125th anniversary. It is really an honor and a joy to get to share this wonderful celebration today, to get to hear tomorrow's leaders, to get to share in the celebration of the full coming of age of Vesalius College. You know, I've now been U.S. Ambassador to Belgium for over 3 years, and that makes me the second longest serving U.S. Ambassador to Belgium in 31 years, or in other words, during the entire lifetime of the college. And so as such, I realize that the idea of Vesalius College, the dream of Vesalius, was at its founding, has always been, and remains today, a powerful one. Create a center of international university thought in the most international city on the most international continent of our planet. Affiliate with a preeminent Dutch language university in a bilingual but heavily francophone city, and do it all in English. Create a home for visiting students seeking a year of international understanding, a home for expats seeking a degree based here in Belgium without linguistic restriction, a home for Belgians seeking a jumping off point for a much broader tomorrow. Now, my experience here in Belgium tells me that realizing this dream could not have been easy, particularly in the early days. For we understand today far more than we did in 1987 how truly small the planet is, how interconnected we all are, how international we all are. We realize far more today than in 1987 that we are all in this together, that the challenges we face that unite us are far greater than any differences that could ever divide us, that we will either all rise together or none of us could ever truly float. So today, the notion of English language education in Belgium seems not simply sensible, but indispensable. The notion of international students gathering in Brussels seems not simply sensible, but unstoppable. So truly where Vesalius for now 25 years has led, Leuven and Leuven-la-Neuve, Ghent and Mons, Antwerp and Liège, truly they cannot be far behind. And my experience as the United States Ambassador in Belgium tells me also that this dream and this idea, never easy, must have experienced some bumps and difficult curves along the way during the past 25 years. For while the notion of a truly international education must have gotten steadily easier to explain, steadily easier to justify, and steadily easier to be proud of, the relationship between Belgium and the United States did not follow the same consistently upward slope for the past 25 years. You see, we, the United States, may have at one time, and indeed at many times, been among Belgium's favorites. Truly, as U.S. boys came in the second and fifth decades of the 20th century to liberate Belgians from the horrors of war and from the horrors of occupation, as U.S. support came to rebuild Belgium, truly then the partnership thrived. Yet despite our history as the dearest of allies and those bonds that followed the world wars, in the mid-2000s, as Vesalius was fully coming of age, the U.S.-Belgium relationship was widely described in the press as being frosty. As a result of differences over handling of the Iraq War, the Belgian government considered closing the port of Antwerp to U.S. ships, closing Belgian airspace to U.S. planes, and subjecting a top U.S. Defense Department official to criminal jurisdiction in Belgium under its then law of universal jurisdiction. In that world of yesterday of the mid-2000s, amidst Vesalius's ascent through its teenage years, we, Belgians and Americans, had gotten off track with each other. We were speaking past each other. And it began at the level of the citizens. The politicians and government officials simply follow the popular sentiment. So indeed, the Gallup polling company started in 2007 to track public opinion in every country concerning America and the U.S. leadership. Their first poll of all the countries in the world was held in 2007. And the results of that first poll showed that in Belgium in 2007, only 8% of the citizenry had a favorable view of U.S. leadership, while 65% had an unfavorable view, with 27% being neutral or having no opinion. Think about that. 8% favorable and 65% unfavorable. An 8-to-1 unfavorable ratio just 5 years ago. During such times, in that type of public opinion environment, American interests of any sort and the Belgian-American relationship must have suffered mightily. Expats had to feel at least somewhat uncomfortable amidst their neighbors. Tourists hiding their t-shirts and their guidebooks being held face down so they wouldn't identify them as Americans. U.S.-based business is laying down their home roots, and colleges dedicated to fostering international education in the English language, with a large participation from the United States and largely rooted in the notion of an international partnership, had to then face an enormous failure. Now, the good news for Vesalius, for the U.S., for Belgium, for the U.S.-Belgian relationship, for every tourist who wants to wear a Boston Red Sox t-shirt in the Grand Place and carry their guidebooks face up, and for every Belgian waffle shop that hopes to sell 2 waffles to them and not just one. The good news is we have left that yesterday. That one yesterday is far behind. You see, the election of Barack Obama and the appointment of Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, beginning in 2009, took us a long way back to the partnership path, a path in which students from Brussels, St. Louis, Mumbai, and Morocco could not be more excited to see one another, to talk with one another, to study together in English, and to learn from one another. The Gallup poll in that 2009 year, shortly after the election, showed that the change in opinion of U.S. leadership had raised the favorability rating once at 8%, then to 30%, a 22% gain, and cut the unfavorability from 65% down to 23%, a 42% decrease in the unfavorability. So the rating as of 2009 was 30% favorable, 23% unfavorable, shortly after the election of Barack Obama. Now, there could have been potential bad news for Vesalius. You see, the latest Gallup poll of all the countries in the world that came out May 1st of this year, just 4 months ago, showed some surprises. The Eurozone crisis and perhaps Afghanistan fatigue had contributed to the favorability rating for U.S. leadership losing 10% in Germany and 15% in France, 2 neighboring countries for Belgium. But we are proud to know that in that very same international poll released by Gallup in May 2012, just 4 months ago, Belgium finished first in the world with the highest gain in favorability rating for U.S. leadership. There was another 15% gain in favorability, another 8% decrease in the unfavorability. So that rating, which was 865 just 5 years ago, now stands at 46% favorable and only 22% unfavorable, a more than 2-to-1 favorable edge for the United States, where a 1-to-8 ratio uphill stood just 5 years ago. Which means today, Belgians view American leadership more favorably than Americans view American leadership, and pretty surely than Belgians view Belgian leadership. The world has indeed gotten smaller again. A much easier world for the expats with the t-shirts. and for Vesuvius College. And the lesson for all of us is that we can never return to the yesterday of that mid-2000s as we build the future together. Not to that yesterday here in Belgium. We must all fight, Professor de Canat, Professor Musselman, every student, every alumni, me, the chocolate shops, the waffle vendors, the Belgian business leaders, the journalists, the courts, the politicians, and all others. We must all fight never to go back to that yesterday. No matter who may be in the White House, no matter how many seats are held by which party in the Belgian Parliament, and certainly no matter who may live in the glorious residence of the United States Ambassador to Belgium. You see, Ambassador Sam Fox, my dedicated Republican predecessor, and President George Bush did not define America any more than Howard Gutman or President Barack Obama defined America. America's 310 million citizens dedicated to the same values shared by 11 million Belgians and by all true citizens in the brotherhood of man. Freedom, democracy, respect for our fellow men and women, and for the brotherhood of citizens. Love of family, pride in work, curiosity about tomorrow, and so much more. America is not about the guy who gets to speak at the Vesuvius anniversary celebration, or even about the president who sent him to Belgium. It's about the students who come to Vesuvius year after year from America. It's about the students in the Fulbright program. It's about the students still studying back home in universities and colleges and junior colleges and in trade schools. It's about their parents. It's about their siblings. America is about their values, their plans, and their dreams. Now, sure, we, Belgians and Americans, may from time to time diverge in our tactics, for dear friends and dear allies always do. But we will always share our passions, our values, and our sense of decency. So no matter where the lanes lead in the years ahead, we must always remain on the same highway. We cannot go back to that yesterday. And it is because we cannot go back to that yesterday, and because we need to try to reach the same partnership around the globe that exists today between Belgium and America, that Vesuvius, the Fulbright program, international educational exchanges around the globe are so important. Indeed, Vesuvius, international schools and international exchange programs have never been more important. Now that was true, that they've never been more important, even as of last week, as we look to the future. You see, America operates educational exchanges in 155 countries worldwide. So in roughly 80% of the countries in the world, an American sits in a classroom full of students from that foreign country to the American. And the student from that foreign country sits in an American classroom, each and every one of them learning to be international citizens. Real people-to-people diplomacy. More than 350 alumni of our educational exchange programs have become heads of state, including Dilma Rousseff, the head of Brazil, Abdullah Gül from Turkey, Hamid Karzai of Afghanistan. 350 graduates of American educational exchange programs abroad have become world leaders. Could there possibly be a better investment? A more meaningful program by which to build international understanding, international peace, and prosperity. And no matter how important Vesuvius was last week, no matter how important the Fulbright program, the Commission for Educational Exchange, and the other international exchange programs were last week, they are far more important today. America buried 4 heroes this week. People dedicated to making the world better. People dedicated to human rights and to the fundamental security of others around the globe. The world watched riots this week. The burning of embassies dedicated to a better tomorrow for the children around the world. Indeed, we witnessed the burning of a school in Tunisia where nearly 600 children of 60 different nationalities studied in peace and in joy, building international understanding and representing the hope for tomorrow. A school where 75% of the children were non-American. This was murder, hatred, and violence, purported to be undertaken in the name of God and in the name of one of the world's great religions. But all people of faith, and I am among them, well know that murder and hatred and violence against innocents do not honor God and do not honor religion. Hatred and murder in the name of religion is simply hatred and murder. And the extremists and murderers who killed our four heroes, the extremists who set the international school and diplomatic missions ablaze, they do not speak for more than 1 million Muslims around the world, and they sure as heck don't speak for the overwhelming majority of Muslims here in Belgium. I have shared meals with many of my Muslim friends in Belgium, and I have worked with imams and mosque leaders and students named Muhammad and girls in headscarves to build a planet of mutual understanding and respect. And I believe, and I hope to my core, that their voices will be heard, decrying the wrongful use of Islam to justify murder and hatred. I look forward to hearing that chorus. And that brings us back to the even greater importance this week than ever of Vesalius, of the Fulbright program, of the Commission for Educational Exchange, and the other international educational exchanges and international education programs. You see, while some will point to a few hundred extremists who opted for violence this week in Libya, the number that will actually triumph in Libya is 1,700. The number of Libyan students who applied for Fulbright scholarships within the first month after Secretary Clinton recently reinstated the program, following the emergence of the new Libyan government. Their 1,700 voices will be heard far louder. In Tunisia, where we lost the international school, the action that will lead into tomorrow is not the burning of a school by extremists, but the recent reopening of the Fulbright program for 2013 in Tunisia, in which applications have been flooding in. And while we witnessed the violence of extremists in Egypt being rebuffed by Egyptian security forces, the new Egyptian leader, who this week traveled Europe condemning the murders in Libya and condemning those who sought violence in Egypt, that leader received his PhD in engineering from the University of Southern California in the U.S. in 1982 and was an assistant professor at California State University, Northridge from 1982 to 1985. Those 1,700, those new Tunisians applying for the Fulbright program, that leader of Egypt, they understand the importance of Vesalius and the international programs. Education will be one of the pillars of the bridge that violence will never be able to topple. So to Vesalius, to the faculty, to the students, to the alumni, congratulations for the first 25 years and best of luck for the next 125. Thanks so much.